is 12:30, ladies and gentlemen, and because this program, we want to get started on time because this program is going to last about 6.5 to 7 hours, so we don't want to delay things. I want to welcome you to the 20th Annual Greater Peoria Sports Hall of Fame Banquet. This is always a great event, and we have quite an distinguished audience here this afternoon. Before I introduce our illustrious president, Dr. Michael Higgins, to extend the official welcome, I want to apologize for the mayor of Peoria, Bud Greaves. He could not be here this afternoon, though he was supposed to be here. He took the suit he was planning to wear to be cleaned at Eagle Cleaners, and I think it'll be a while before he gets it back. The Vanakans, you know, are now walking around dressed like Royce Elliott because they did the same thing. So the mayor won't be here, but he did ask me in his absence to take a quick survey. How many of you are from the city of Peoria? Applaud, please. How many are from outside Peoria? Let's hear from you. Now, how many of you are from Peoria but wish you were from outside the city? Please applaud. What an honor it is for me to welcome the president of our esteemed organization, a man who has remained at the helm despite the fact that many people don't like him, but he does an outstanding job. I don't care what folks say about him, and I'm just delighted to introduce you to our illustrious president, Dr. Michael Higgins.
Thank you, Roger. Could my board members please stand and be recognized for keeping me on as president? I really do appreciate it. All of you. There's one, thank you. They are kind of bashful, but thank you very much. As Roger alluded to, this is the 20th Annual Greater Peoria Sports Hall of Fame Banquet. I welcome all of you from out of town, and thank you all for attending, friends, inductees, the Neve Harm winners, the coaches and athletes. I thank all of you for coming to Peoria. You folks who have not been here for quite a few years, I'm sure you have seen quite a change in the downtown area of Peoria. But again, welcome, and thank you very, very much.
If you could applaud for him, he would feel a lot better if you did. A few minutes ago, Dr. Higgins said to our waitress, I see we're having chicken. How do you prepare your chicken? And the waitress said, we just tell them they're going to die. Did everyone receive a program booklet? I hope, because once again, it's an outstanding booklet, and I want to recognize Larry Dunn, who puts this together every year. Larry, are you in the room? Where is Larry? Thank you, Larry. Last night, a wife said, Larry, let's go upstairs and make love. And he said, honey, I can't do both. The program booklet says that Dirk McGinnis is going to entertain us with music. And frankly speaking, I haven't seen Dirk since he left public office, or heard from him, which is quite unusual with his voice. Is Dirk in the room, or is Lee Winger in the room? Neither one. So we won't have a musical presentation. I wonder if any of you would care to hum a couple of bars of America the Beautiful, or we'll forego it in place of our invocation, which is going to be delivered this year by Father Patrick from Holy Family Catholic Church. Father Patrick?
Thank you. Let us bow our heads. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. This is taken from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is now late. Send the crowds away, so that they may go into the villages and buy food for themselves." Jesus said to them, "They need not go away. You give them something to eat." They replied, "We have nothing here but 5 loaves and 2 fish." And he said, "Bring them here to me." And he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven, blessed and broke the loaves, and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. And all ate and were filled. And they took up what was left over of the broken pieces, 12 baskets full. And those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. The Gospel of the Lord. Lord Jesus, you always remember those who are hungry and in need, and you feed them as you fed the 5,000. As we gather together here, we ask for your blessing on this food and on our fellowship. Continue your blessings on the abilities and talents of your athletes, those who coach and train them, and all who sustain and support them. Help us all to realize your grace and love in all that we do. And as we eat the food prepared for us here today, let us always remember to be generous to all those who are in need and are hungry in our neighborhoods, our society, and in our world. For in you, Father, we live and move and have our being. We thank you for the everlasting arms around us, for the everlasting love with which you have loved us. We praise you, O Lord, for the food that sustains our bodies and for the living bread that nourishes our souls. As your gifts are the manifestation of your love for us, may our gratitude and the proper use of our athletic talents be the expression of our love for you. We ask this through our Lord Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with the Father and the Holy Spirit, now and forever. Amen.
The list of individuals and teams is printed on page 1 of your program. Certainly not all of them are here today, but some are. And since time doesn't permit us to introduce each one, I would like to ask all of the members of the Sports Hall of Fame who have plaques around the arena or participated on a team that has a plaque in the arena, please stand at this time and be recognized by the audience. Again, we thank you for coming, and thank you to the audience for your appreciative response to these outstanding athletes from the greater Peoria area. For the past couple of months, we have been selling raffle tickets, and a member of the board, Bob Selasky, is coming forward. We're going to have the drawing for this. The prize is a round of golf for 4 at Weaver Ridge and a lifetime pass to Big Al. So at this time, Bob Selasky, would you come forward?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Greater Peoria Sports Hall of Fame is a bare bones operation. All the board members are volunteers. In fact, they even pay for their own dinner here today. And all of our costs are covered by the gracious donations by all of the patrons we have, and many of you folks are here today, and I want to publicly thank you for the donations that you've given to us over the year to keep this great thing going. As an added thank you this year, Jerry and Nancy Weaver have donated a round of golf at Weaver Ridge Golf Course for all the folks that contribute to our fundraising each year. And it's valued at $350, and it's worth every penny if any of you have ever played the Weaver Ridge Golf Course. So I'm going to ask our president, Doc Hicks, to draw the name out. You don't have to be Doc Higgins.
Hicks is okay.
Yeah. Some of you from Woodruff may remember old Doc Hicks. I don't know where that came from.
You're showing your age, Bob.
Coach Virgil Boucher, you have won a round of golf.
Let's hear it for the coach. now for the presentation of our annual awards, beginning with the Tri-County Female and Male Coaches of the Year. And we start with Nancy Meyer, coach at Illini Bluffs High School. Let's hear all the folks from Glassford. Last season, Nancy's softball team finished 4th in the Illinois High School Association's Class A state tournament. Their final record was a startling 32 wins and only 4 losses. And in achieving that great record, her players won both the ICAC and Tomahawk conferences, and they also captured the tournament titles at Delvin and Washington. In her career at Illini Bluffs, Coach Meyer's teams have won 134 while losing just 26 games. Isn't that great? And when she isn't on the softball field, Coach Myers is working with the volleyball team, and her team last year won the regional championship. It's our honor and privilege to award the Tri-County Female Coach of the Year award to Nancy Meyer of Illini Bluffs High School.
It's a great feeling and a great deal of pride that I stand before you representing Illini Bluffs High School. I would like to thank the Board of Directors of Greater Peoria Sports Hall of Fame for recognizing the achievements of our softball program. As you know, in any production, the leading lady, the success that she achieves is only mirrored by the effort that is given by her supporting staff. I have been very blessed in my professional and personal life with a wonderful supporting staff professionally and privately. There are many people here today with me representing not only my school but my family, and I want to thank them for all of their time and the effort and the support that they have given us. Last but certainly not least, I would like to thank the group of young ladies that have played at Illini Bluff High School, that have elevated the program so that we have become a very successful program, and we have achieved a very great amount of success. So thank you very much for this award. And again, to the Board of Directors, we appreciate the recognition that it has brought to our high school. Thank you again.
Thank you, Coach. And now for the Tri-County Male Coach of the Year, and that honor goes to Bob Darling of Richwoods High School. You'll recall the very successful year his Knights had last season, winning the school's first sectional in 8 years, and then going on to place 4th in the Illinois High School Association's Class AA tournament here in Peoria, where he's headed again this year, right? His record last year was 26 victories and just 7 defeats in one of the most competitive conferences in the state of Illinois. His record at Richwoods is 90-47, and overall his coaching career is 138-82. And Coach Darling will be remembered, long remembered, for using his non-playing seniors at great length in last year's consolation game in the state tournament. Please join in recognizing the Tri-County Male Coach of the Year from Richwoods High School, Bob Darling.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame for this honor today. It's something that kind of caught me by surprise, and I figured I was too young for these kind of things, but maybe being 45 now, maybe I am getting older now, so I want to thank them for that. I want to thank also all the people that came out today, especially the people from Richwoods and the families that have come out, and the former basketball players, and I really appreciate you guys coming out today, and that's really nice that you've done it. Thank you. And my friends and family here at the front table, I want to thank them, and I appreciate them being here today to do. I know it's pretty hard for Danny and Rhonda to sit with me after what happened last Tuesday night with Central, but I appreciate Danny mustering eating dinner with me today also. It's a real big honor, and my mother's not here to enjoy this with us. She's at home today, but I have to thank my mom. She's got a lot to do with me being up here, and I want to thank my sisters that aren't here also. Once again, thanks a lot, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Darling. Next are the Tri-County Athletes of the Year. We begin with Shauna Neff of Dunlap High School. As a senior last year, Shauna excelled in not one, not two, but 3 sports: basketball, soccer, and volleyball. And excel she did. She was named the Peoria Journal Soccer Player of the Year and also the Class A Basketball Player of the Year. She was named an All-State soccer player with 19 assists and 22 goals. And her basketball skills certainly did not go unnoticed. She now attends the Air Force Academy, where she's a starter on their basketball team. A true all-around athlete. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the Tri-County Female Athlete of the Year, Shauna Neff. Shauna, you've lost a lot of hair, but we look forward to hearing from you. The MC is always the last to know, by the way.
It's only fitting that Shauna carried Coach Carruthers and myself for 4 years, so we're going to take 2 of us to carry her plaque back. But I'm the soccer coach out at Dunlap, and she had an incredible career. She's one of those kids that did all the things you saw in the box scores and the things that you didn't see in the box score, and always played hard, but always had a sense of fair play, and just enjoyed watching and coaching her.
She made us look good, not too good, but she made us look good for 4 years, and just an outstanding athlete and an outstanding sportsman, a real class act, and we appreciate, she asked us to thank God for her abilities and make sure to say thank you to her parents and family for their support. I would like to thank all the coaches, Pat Fetchum in volleyball, and Wayne and myself, for the dedication and support that we gave her, and just wanted to say thank you to her for how she made her teammates better, because she rewarded them when they worked hard. The ball got to them in the right place at the right time, and appreciate you guys honoring her in this way and rewarding her for her hard work at Dunlap. We thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, guys. Our Tri-County Male Athlete of the Year out of Peoria High School and Indiana University is A.J. Guyton. What a career he had at Indiana, and especially the final year as a senior, leading the Hoosiers to the NCAA. He wound up the season scoring close to an average of 20 points a game. He was the 4th leading scorer in Indiana basketball history. And of course, at the end of the season, we all know and remember, he was named Big Ten Co-Player of the Year, named to the All-Big Ten First Team, and named an All-American. And then he was picked in the 2nd round, unfortunately, by the Chicago Bulls. No, I wasn't supposed to say that. What a thrill it is for us to honor Peoria's A.J. Guyton as the Tri-County Male Athlete of the Year, and accepting the award on his behalf is his mother, Rhonda Guyton. Rhonda?
like to first thank Greater Peoria Sports Hall of Fame. I don't mean to read it, but I didn't know what to say. AJ couldn't be here. He's at work. He's in Charlotte. They got a game, so he wasn't able to come. And I asked him if he wanted me to thank anybody in particular, and he just said the town of Peoria for standing behind him and being there for him, and just hanging in there with him. So on behalf of AJ and his sister and brother and my husband Dan, we all want to thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. Our next presentation is the Neve Harms Meritorious Service to Sports Award. It's given in memory and honor of Neve Harms and the principles on which he stood. Since 1966, this organization has annually recognized a person who exemplifies the principles and the values of Neve Harms. And this year we honor Jim Watson, who has been working with the youth of our community for over 40 years as coach, volunteer, official, and friend of the young. He's been involved with the Junior Football League. He helped start the Moonlight Basketball League, supervised activities for the Boys and Girls Club, Carver Center, and many, many other organizations, including the YMCA. He's been the scorer for Manual High School and statistician for Bradley University, and the voice of the Braves, Dave Snell of WMBD. A superb role model for youth and adults. Ladies and gentlemen, this year's Neve Harms Sports Award winner, Jim Watson. Jim, come forward.
Listen, one time I know what it means when people say they're speechless. I didn't know I had to give a little speech, but I do want to thank the Greater Peoria Hall of Fame for honoring me with this award. I know there's many more people out there that probably deserve it more than I. And I want to thank, while I'm here, some friends that came a long way to help me celebrate this day. Walt Slater played at Bradley back in the 80s with Joe Allen. My son who drove in from Minneapolis, St. Paul. My other son who drove in from North Carolina. And all these good friends I have here. I know quite a few of you, and I'm glad to see you. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim. An honor well deserved. Now for the 2000 Sports Hall of Fame inductees. And you will find them, of course, listed in the center of your programs. Every now and then, someone will ask, how are the inductees selected? And if you want to, you can turn to page 30 in your book, which lists the criteria. Residency in Peoria area or surrounding area for a period of time, must have made a significant contribution to sports history, and should be retired from sport or profession. And of course, a little money under the table to the members of the board who vote helps as well. We have 9 presentations, so we'll move forward. Remember, presenters, you do have a time limit. And we'll begin with our first presentation from board member, former Journal Star's sports editor. Please welcome Paul King.
I have to say this before I talk about Coach Bruna. I talked with Coach Tony Juska of Central earlier, and he expressed great disappointment with his Central team because only Gene Carr seemed in shape to play yet. Tom Bruna was probably one of these coaches that performed kind of a miracle. By coming into a small town that had been down in football and performing, really a miracle. 26 years, you can see his record in the program, 8 playoff appearances, tremendous record. I asked Jerry Rashid, who was his coach, assistant coach for 7 years, about Tom. And he found it difficult because he so admired the man. Tom was gruff, intimidating. That was wrong, he said. Most compassionate man he'd ever known. An inspiration for me personally, he told me. Nothing he wouldn't do for anybody. He took over the town. When practice started in the spring, they did the ups and downs, and Tom was called the Bear, partly because of his voice. The whole town could hear him. They knew football season was starting. Another enjoyable time. He also had, I think, what I found out about him, a great sense of humor. There was a playoff game. The key situation, 4th, couple yards. Tom says to Jerry, should we punt? Should we go for it? Jerry says, hey, you make the big bucks, you call it. So he said, Tom grinned in that pressure situation and called a play, and they made the first down. He was one of those rare people. Wherever he was, wherever he would share everything with others, including his house, late night breakfast with anyone who would like to attend. So he touched so many lives outside of his own sons and brothers through teaching and coaching, and he influenced so many other coaches who served with or against him. And one thing I really like, Tom had a weight problem, and he'd weigh himself. And as Jerry said, after eating 3 Snickers bars and several Pepsis, but he always took off his watch first. Now, I like that because I did the same thing. I still do it, and I love Pepsi. I also talked briefly with Wayne Ragoose, who covered many Princeville games for the Journal-Star. And he said in 50 years of coaching, he thinks Tom was his favorite coach. Wayne retired a couple years ago and had a party in Metamora. On Saturday, the day before, Tom called him up. He was not feeling well. He probably couldn't make it. On Sunday the next day, he called again. He was still feeling badly, and he was really upset because he couldn't make the party. At 2 o'clock, he was the first one there. So Tom was a deeply religious man. He attended Mass almost daily. There are those who say he probably prayed for his opponents at Mass. I don't know if he did or not. He might have, and that surely would make him a true Hall of Famer. So accepting for Tom, who was deceased as of last year, his son Chris is here from Pennsylvania. Also in the audience is his brother Don, who lives in East Peoria. So Chris, would you come forward?
On behalf of family and friends of my father, we'd like to all thank you. We are honored to accept this award. My father would be very proud to have been honored by his induction to this Hall of Fame. He truly loved football. But he also was a strong supporter of solid academics. He believed that athletic competition at its best builds strong character, along with a winning attitude. Again, thank you for this wonderful award. Thank you.
We owe so much to our next presenter, who always helps publicize this event every year in his column and also with some special feature stories. Please welcome Peoria Journal-Star columnist and sports writer Phil Theobald. Thank you very much, Phil. Our next presenter.
Thank you, Roger. I've known Roger for a long, long time. We haven't talked for a couple of years. I didn't want to interrupt. It is super to be here. Who picked out the meal? Doc. Doc? Doc, did you do that? So I'll tell my doctor joke. Can I tell that joke on that? Okay. Doctor and his wife had a very nasty argument. It really gets down and dirty one night. And the next day the doctor is, he ended the argument by saying, and the last thing, you're terrible in bed. So he ended the argument by saying that, and they went to bed. Next day at work, he called from the hospital. He called at noon, and he said, he was a little killed in. He said, where you been after she took so long to answer the phone? She said, I've been in bed. He said, well, what were you doing there? And she said, I was getting a second opinion. I can tell that joke. Doctors are back since Viagra. In the late 70s, early 80s, Nancy Fasano, who was a sports writer at the Journal-Star, would come back to the office and she'd say, you gotta get out and see this kid. Well, women sports writers, they don't know what's going on. I see Bobby's still smiling because Central can't make free throws. And you know, there are so many football coaches in here. I'm surprised we're not doing calisthenics or something. But anyway, it's like, isn't it like a lot of things when somebody says you got to get out and see this person? Yeah, right. And you never get around to it. And then she went on to Arizona State, Jody Rathman I'm talking about, from Limestone. And you wish, doggone, I wish I had gotten out and seen that person. And you didn't. So, you know, if some up-and-coming athlete, even if it's not your bag, and people are raving about this person, you know, pull away from, you know, if you're a Central student, pull away from free throw practice or whatever, and get out and see these kids. They really deserve it. And they go on to be stars and gain national acclaim and then come to eat here when eat chicken and raw spaghetti or whatever it was. I'm sorry? It was free? No, it wasn't free. I get my stomach pumped.
I wonder where we're going to eat next year.
Jody was a softball star and a basketball star. Softball's not easy. You know, they give you a round bat and they throw a round ball at you and say, hit it square. And that is tough. You will notice on page 29 some of her statistics. Very, very impressive. Everyone's turning 29. Nope. 22, I'm sorry. Oh, goodness. Will people help the football coaches with the numbers? And suffice to say, she was the #1 athlete in this area, in that era. And I'm talking about, she was among the class athletes, both boys and girls, men and women. And then, of course, she went on to Arizona State, and a 4-year starter. Still has records, and that was quite a while ago. And I think still plays some, right? Yeah. Okay, well, without, Jody is here, right? Okay, yeah. I see, I never saw her. I never paid attention. I never went. Without any more, Danny, Jody's available if you need help, you know, practicing free throws. Jody Rathman.
Thank you, Greater Peoria Hall of Fame, for this induction, and to all the people inducting. First, like Nancy Myers said, it's just not me. There's a whole lot of people I need to thank, starting with my family, of course, my mom and dad. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for my father, he coached me probably from the time I was probably 10 or so to the time I was 18 in softball. Another coach I wish was here, Pep Kerwin. She was my grade school coach. She was a Hall of Famer from the time I was in 3rd grade all the way to 8th grade. And at Limestone, I had a volleyball coach, the Hubers, Al and Marilyn. I thank them. And then my basketball coach, Mr. Gross, best coach I ever had for basketball. He's got over 500, close to 550 wins. And then my softball coach, Lou, she has over 300 wins herself. So it wasn't just myself, it's also the players I had, the teammates, the teams I played against, like Rich Woods and Mary Kay and Nora. And when I got to Arizona State, I also had 2 more excellent coaches. My softball coach, Mary Littlewood, she had over 500 some wins at ASU and 2 national championships. My basketball coach, she was a 1976 Olympic gold medalist with Charlotte Lewis, who's from Peoria. So it wasn't just myself. I had great coaches all along the way. And then another Hall of Famer who I just had a coach for my East Peoria Vonnies team, Mort Canner. With all these people, how could I couldn't go wrong with all these great coaches that I had, and players, and teammates, and friends. And I would just like to thank them all, because it just couldn't have been me, it's all them too. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody, and thanks to Phil. Phil's got a great sense of humor, and we always appreciate hearing from you. Probably don't know, Phil thinks getting a little action means he doesn't need to take any fiber today. So. Like Phil and Paul, another board member and recent candidate for mayor is Ed Murphy. Ed Murphy ran the kind of campaign I like. Particularly, he's a strong believer in campaign finance reform. You probably will read about it later in the paper. In his campaign, he spent $49.23, but I still voted for him. Here's Ed Murphy.
Good afternoon. There's a good reason why I didn't win. He was my campaign manager, and Theobald was my publicist.
You already had a losing ticket.
Gracious. As an old, and I emphasize old, basketball official, I've enjoyed saying whenever a basketball coach is within earshot, I've never met a basketball coach I liked. Now that isn't entirely true, but after working all of the Galesburg-Pekin games I worked in my career, there is some truth to it. However, one that I did like, and liked very much, was Bill Hungate. Longtime coach at Carl Sandburg, and before that at Abington High School. Bill was one of the finest guys I ever met. My first memory of Bill's daughter was of a young, attractive blonde girl with an amazing level of energy. She acted as equipment manager, ball girl, scorekeeper, or just plain gopher for her dad after he had started the program at Carl Sandburg. I worked most of the holiday tournaments during his reign and enjoyed very much watching the two of them work in concert. Mary Kay, before long, went on to establish a successful women's program at Carl Sandburg and carved out an 80-22 record in 4 seasons, taking her 76 Lady Cougars to the National JUCO Tournament. Not long after that, I walked into the Richwoods Gymnasium one autumn afternoon to see my good friend Ty Franklin, and to my surprise, there's Mary Kay Hungate directing the Lady Knights basketball practice. I asked Ty about her, and in Ty's usual wry way said, well, we were lucky to get her, but we won't keep her long. My quizzical look, he added, she's just too good to stay here very long. Ty Franklin was right. And by the way, Mary Kay, Ty wanted to be with us this afternoon, but 3 days ago, I got a call from him, and he said he was just too ill to attend. But he wanted me to send his very best to you, one of his favorite people. The woman we're inducting today into the Greater Peoria Sports Hall of Fame is in many ways the most successful basketball coach this town has ever seen. And that's saying a lot, since we've seen the likes of Forty Anderson and Bruce Boyle and Dottie Hawkins and Chuck Orsborn and Lorraine Ramsey and A.J. Robertson and Dick Van Syak and Warren Womble. But consider these facts. Hungate coached the only undefeated high school or college team, basketball team, in the history of this city. She is the only one of 6 coaches in Peoria history to have won an IHSA state tournament. She is the only coach in IHSA history to have had teams complete 3 consecutive undefeated regular seasons. And if you don't think that's incredible, just ask some of the coaches in this room. Fergie, is that incredible, or is that incredible? Yeah. Her 1983, 84, 85 basketball teams finished with a combined record of 95 wins and 2 losses. Her 81 team finished second at Champaign. Her 83 girls won it all. Her 84 team finished second, and her 85 team came in third. In 7 seasons at Richwoods High School, she sported an incredible record of 195 wins and 13 losses. Mary Kay, among her other awards, was named the Tri-County Sports Figure right here in this banquet room in the year 1983. She was named USA Today's National Coach of the Year in 1985. In her 5 seasons as first assistant at Louisiana Tech, those teams won 153 and 15 and won a national title in 1988. Mary Kay is currently an associate athletics director and senior women's compliance administrator at Louisiana Tech. Let me introduce a woman who, over her 16 seasons of coaching, had a combined record of 428 wins against 50 losses. Mary Kay, we'd like you to come up here. And believe me, kiddo, your dad's awfully proud right now. Congratulations.
That may be the first time that an official has said something nice about me. Actually, my goal for this speech was to make it all the way through without getting emotional, and not off to a very good start. It's not made it easy. But first, let me thank the board for this honor. I very much appreciate it. What I really appreciate, though, is the chance to get up here and thank several people that are just as much a part of this award as I am. It belongs to everybody that helped out at Richwoods and supported us throughout those years. I was very lucky to work for an administration that I respected, that I enjoyed being around and that enabled us to be successful. Bob Baeto, Rachel Shepherdson, and of course Ty Franklin, and then Don Weiss. I saw one of my office mates is here, Diane Pettit, who now is the AD at Richwoods. I told Diane she had not changed a bit. She looked the same, and then I paused so she could tell me the same thing. And, she really doesn't. I also would like to mention Lorraine Ramsey. I know she's not here, but what a role model for all females that wanted to go into coaching. I've known her for several years, and I can remember when I first got into coaching, her and I would go to basketball clinics, and we would be the only females. And it's come a long way, but she has really provided the path for the rest of us to follow. I also want to thank Ralph Gallo, who in my opinion was the best assistant anyone could ever have. He knew the game, cared about the kids, and put the program was first with him. Whatever needed to be done for the good of the program was what he wanted to do, and I just appreciate him so much. The players, if I'm going to make it without being emotional, I'm going to have to not say too much there. They were the program. They were the reason that I was able to be successful. Talent and just the attitude that they had. You know, I look back now, and a lot of times you don't appreciate things when you're right there and you're involved. But as I went on to Louisiana Tech and began recruiting and was in high schools all over the country, then you kind of see what you had and how special it was. And this was some of the best student athletes that anyone could wish for, and a lot of the credit for that goes to their parents. The families were supportive, and it was just a great situation. I also want to thank my family that is here back at table 25. I've got 5 brothers and sisters, 4 of them and their spouses and soon-to-be spouse were able to make it today. My mom used to tell me when I didn't want to babysit or something, someday you're going to be happy that you've got this many brothers and sisters. And once again, Mom was right. I also want to thank my mother. When you count the number of games that she has seen for my dad, my games, I have a brother and a sister that played. If she would have received $1 for every basketball game that she has seen, she could be vacationing in Hawaii right now. She's got to be a basketball expert. But anyway, I appreciate her support. She was probably the only one that ever asked me why we didn't press sooner or why I didn't play. And she was just there. Lastly, I do want to mention the person who I think is the most responsible for me being here talking to you today. We lost my dad last May to cancer, but I know he's standing right here. Back in the early 1970s, the Illinois High School Association still did not believe that girls could play basketball.
There were no girls' sports. I was a senior at Galesburg High School, and there was nothing. He allowed me to be his manager. I worked with him that year, and then the following year when I went out to Carl Sandburg, and that's where I learned the game. And Dad taught me a lot about basketball. He taught me that if you're going to run a fast break, you got to fill the lanes. If you're going to be consistent and win championships, you've got to vary your defenses. He taught me if you outwork everyone else, you'll be successful. And he helps me to believe that girls can coach. And I owe everything that has happened to me to him. Again, I want to thank the board and just say that there are so many people that are up here with me sharing this award that have meant so much. Richwoods High School and Peoria will always have a very special place in my heart, not because of the victories, but because of the people that were involved in them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary Kay. Now to recognize the 1960 and 1962 Richwood State Golf Champs, a member of those winning squads, let's welcome Terry Shad.
Most of us are from out of town, frankly, and I couldn't believe when I got here today and saw what a wonderful thing this is. We were imagining something that was maybe not nearly as nice as what this presentation and all the people and the staff and everything else. So this has been fantastic. It's an honor for me to represent the 1960-62 Richwoods golf team. What maybe doesn't show up in the program is these same people that we're going to introduce here in a minute, that in 1959, we went to state, and I think we were 15th. And that was the first year for most of us. Well, some of us, and as you'll see, some of the ages changed because there's two teams. But then, and of course, in 1960, we won the state. In 1961, we were leading after the first round, and then in the second round, we didn't score as well, and we ended up getting beat by Hinsdale, and we were second. So, and then, of course, in 1962, we won again. So, a heck of a feat by a bunch of good golfers. Representing them, I just want to thank the board and for this recognition. And are we supposed to bring them up now? I saw Coach Jessica just a little bit ago, and he was our coach. There he is. And so Coach Jessica is here. Can you come up?
Blow the whistle. Everybody stand up, take a little.
There it is.
Coach, I hope you didn't have the experience I had with my golf team. It was more competitive than what you saw on television as Survivor. All I did was duck golf balls.
If I could, I'd like to introduce the teams, and we'll go with the 1960 team first. Bob Moreland, if you could come up here and I think stand right up here. Dr. Finley Brown. Dave Van Lannen. Mike Finney. There's Jeff Friedlander, who is not here. I think he's in Fort Lauderdale and couldn't make it. And then myself, I was also on the 1960 team. In the 1962 team, Bob Moreland again, myself again, Tom Cole, Doug Proctor, Mike Friedlander, and Rich Hoadley, who is not here as well. And that's the team.
Thanks, Terry. I'm glad there weren't 10 members of each team. We might have been here a little longer. Speaking of time, our next presenter is a former coach, a board member, a Hall of Famer, and holder of the world's record, acceptance speech, which last year lasted 1 hour and 41 minutes and 22 seconds. Please hold your applause, please, for Phil Salsa.
Roger, I understand why Peoria had lost. I'm happy to see a lot of these tough old football coaches. I know Phil Theobald kind of threw something at him, but guys like Joe Venturi and, of course, Tony Jessica and Virg Boucher and Bob Biotto out there, those are just good examples of guys that have helped bring along many of you people sitting out there today. And they're still sticking around to make certain you're doing it right. And this next guy that I want to introduce to you as an inductee is one of those guys who coached for 38 years. We're not going to see that much anymore. in high school athletics. And I know sitting over there at one of the tables, table number 27, are many of his assistants. And I'm certain that they basically would say the same thing that I'll attempt to say, and that is, not only was he a good coach, but he was a good person to work with and be around. And that certainly is something that all of us like to do in our jobs. Of course, he's known for being gruff, just like several of the former coaches that I just mentioned. Maybe that's just typical of head football coaches. But he certainly was always good to the kids. He was a very caring individual. He taught them about honesty, taught them about hard work. Myself, I grew up in this area, so I really have heard many stories about people who I either heard of or read about, but some of them I've coached with and against, and they're legends. Tony Jessica at Peoria High and Richwoods. Also, we have George Boucher out there, a legend at Woodruff, Kenny Irons down at Manual. At our own school, a guy by the name of Doc Herkey, Eni Orboit down at Spalding, and Merv Haycock, also at Spalding and Bergen. This individual is a legend here in the city. No other high school football coach here at a city school has ever won more games at one of our city high schools. At this time, I'd like to introduce, with great pleasure, a legend, also an individual who's been one of my best. To the Greater Peoria Sports.
Murph, I could have ran for mayor with that introduction. To my good friend, Mr. Theobald, he took a shot at us. Coaches may not be able to count, but they know the directions to barbershops. I want to thank the Hall of Fame committee and Dr. Higgins and his group for the honor. I've often admired the plaques posted on the wall in the arena of previous inductees, and have found many of these people influenced my coaching career, such as people with Dottie Hawkins, and I'm honored to be placed among this group. As always, has been enumerated already, there are many people involved. When you coach 38 years, and 25 or 6 of those as a head coach, obviously it's not just you. And I need to kind of talk about these people, and so bear with me a minute, would you? Not a one-man act, and I'd like to first of all thank my wife for her trials and tribulations as a coach's wife. She supported me throughout my career. And my children, Patrick and Jeannie and Amy, and 2 of them are present here today, and they're sitting over here at table 5. My introduction to football was a gentleman at St. Teresa High School named Joe Venturi. He was my high school coach, sitting right out here in front. Coach Venturi taught me the toughness of the game. He later hired me as the line coach at Peak and really brought me to this area. I was with him for 2 years. I learned a lot about toughness of the game and the X's and O's from him. And for that, I want to thank him. By the way, the 2 years I was peaking, we won 3 or 4 games, and the next year after I left, they won the conference title. What's that tell you? My college coach was Ray Elliott, and Gene Carr, a couple of others who identify with him. For you younger people, he was the head football coach at the University of Illinois back in the 50s and 60s. From him, I learned motivation. He's one of the best motivational coaches I've ever been around. He also taught me how to treat players. He really treated kids well. And for that, I thank him. To the many people that involved in my hiring and keeping me as a coach, from Dick Whitaker, who hired me at Peoria Central. He was the head football coach at that time. And Max Mills, the principal. These people, of course, got me started at Central. Again, I had a great influence on that program because he resigned as the head coach after only 1 year. Next was Dick Jameson, who I worked as an assistant. I learned offensive football from him, especially the passing game. I just had a tough time including it later on as the head coach of my offense. For him, I want to thank. I had many bosses, superintendents, Peterson, Holman, Harry Whitaker, who was my principal and superintendent. To him, I want to thank Principal Corky Robertson, who's on the committee, and my last few years with Principal Dick Green. These gentlemen allowed me to coach and were very supportive to our program at all times, and I appreciated that. To my assistant coaches, who some of them are here back at table 27, Phil, you just heard from, and thank you, Phil. I'll give you the $20 later. Phil and I were not just coaches and head coach, assistant, we were buddies, as he said, for 35 years. Also had Dick Isaacson, who's been with us for over 15 years, and now the head coach at Peoria Central. Gary Beard and Mike Olson were there with me for a number of years. To the uninformed about high school coaches and coaching in our level, it's very difficult to keep assistant coaches very long. These gentlemen probably combined got 50 or 60 years of coaching among them, and for that I appreciate the time that I spent with them and they spent with me. I also had 2 other assistants that are here today, Jim Brown and Steve Castleman, and the many other assistant coaches that passed through, I want to thank. To the numerous athletic directors, Father Larson was at Freeport Aquin, John Moss, Harvey Tucker, Jim Smartjesse, Bill Sissel, Mike Punkman. These are all ADs I worked with. Great pleasure to work with because they understood the sport. And then how difficult it was at times, and were there to support you and one made the program successful. And to the faculty and staff at Peoria High School, where I spent 34 years, their support was very outstanding in terms of helping student athletes and supporting our program. And of course, to the I figured about over 1,000 varsity football players I had to deal with. And I'll tell you what, in the years I was at Central, we had some great athletes and some great kids. 2 of them are sitting out here, Danny Ruffin, Mattarelli, and a couple others. And great kids and great athletes like that's what made it successful for me. Among them, along with these mentioned people, we had various support people. Doctors Bill and Robert Hartz, who I think are in this, were inducted for the Neve Harms Award a few years ago. The many years they spent on the sideline with us. Our statistician, Bernie Mayer, who's part of the 1954 team being inducted today, and his son Donnie. I thank them for their time. These gentlemen were volunteers. They were not paid. They spent 20, 25 years with me. To them, I thank. To the many others that assisted in our success that I may have forgotten to mention, I thank you. To this audience for being so patient and letting an old coach have his day in the sun, I thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Kind of a cheap shot at Phil Theobald. He had to leave. He usually does the write-up of this, but he broke the only crayon he brought, and so he had to hurry back to the Journal Star and get a blue one. He does look a little bit like Chief Illini Wick, though, doesn't he? Did you notice that? Got a feather sticking out of his ear. I appreciate our next presenter. He's one of the hard-working members of the board for over 25 years, and just really a nice guy. Does so much for our organization. Please welcome Ed Dwyer, please.
Thank you, Roger. We've heard the name Legend many times here, but for the people in the Chicago area and the Peoria area, I couldn't think of a better legend name than Tony Lawless. Tony was born here in Peoria, played football, basketball at Spalding, captained each team for 4 years. And can you imagine a player that played football without a helmet or thigh pads? And after football practice, I can't see many kids doing that today, but he ran a mile or a mile and a half every night after football practice. And that's just so unusual. He had many offers to go to college, including Notre Dame, but he selected Loyola, where he was an all-star in football and basketball both. When he got out of Loyola, out of 250 applicants, Tony received that job at the Loyola, or the new Fenwick High School, where he coached all the sports there for many, many years. He was just an unbelievable coach, and I can't think of a disciplinarian with all the material I've heard from Tony, what a disciplinarian he was. But he was so well loved and stayed at Fenwick until he died. And the man that succeeded him as athletic director was a good friend of Fenwick still by the name of Dan O'Brien. Dan wasn't able to come with us today, but the two priests from Fenwick are here, and we appreciate their time in coming. Father Joseph Wren and Father William Bernecki, and they're down in tables right here with the Lawless. I can't imagine Tony what he's doing today, but I could imagine with all the Lawless people when they get together. I got to know Dick and Bob very well, and they were instrumental in getting me the information that we needed. But First Liar wouldn't have a chance with the Lawlesses, I know. But Tony thought so much of his Lawless family as I do. I know that they do him. And I wouldn't be able to probably do him justice, but there's a gentleman that came down twice this week from Fenwick, and he played with and under Tony, and to his courtesy, and Johnny Latner that won the Heisman Trophy at Notre Dame and he played for Tony. The Heisman Trophy that Latner won in 1952, I think, is in the back of the room. And bringing that down, because Latner couldn't be here, is a very good friend of particularly Ron Ferguson's, and I've got to know Ken Geiger. And Kenny played with Johnny Latner under Tony, and went on to play in Fenwick at Monmouth College. But he's been very active in the sports world, and I think to really finish this eulogy for Tony Lawless, I'd sure like to have everybody welcome Ken Geiger. Chicago.
I'd like to thank the Greater Peoria Hall of Fame for extending this great honor to Coach Lawless. I would like to thank his family for being here, sharing this with him, and I would like to thank the two Reverend Fathers who made the trip down from Fenwick to be here on this auspicious occasion. In 1976, right after Coach Lawless passed away, I was approached by Gene Strode, who was the head football coach of Hinsdale High School and the president of the Illinois High School Football Coaches Association. He asked if I would put something down on paper because Coach Lawless was being considered for the Hall of Fame for the IHSA. I thought it would be difficult, but it certainly wasn't. I'd like to read the letter I wrote to Gene Strode in 1976. Dear Gene, I first thought it would be difficult to write about a man who so successfully and impressively shaped the young lives of so many other men. But as I think of Coach Lawless, memories come back, lessons learned, and a cherished friendship to the very end fill my mind. My life, like thousands of others, still perhaps reflect the coach's philosophy of living. It was very simple, and it was a Christian philosophy. He taught by example. Live honestly, live cleanly in spirit and mind, love truly, and dedicate yourself to a purpose. But most of all, compete fiercely. Coach Lawless was more than an athletic coach. He was a man in every sense of the word. He loved his family dearly, was loyal to his friends, dedicated himself to young men, and formed a loving relationship for over 40 years with his beloved Fenwick High School. As I reflect on my personal association with him, it would be impossible to singularly point out one or two outstanding qualities of the man. There were so many. Most of all, he was feared. He was held in awe. He was respected, honored, and most of all, later, loved. The love for the man did indeed come after graduation and after the playing days. The love came with our own maturity and our understanding of what the coach really did bequeath everyone who played for him. Our love for the man came when we realized what we had learned from him, from his insistence on sacrifice, from his insistence that education held the key to the future, from his demand that our bodies shelter a competitive heart, and from his untiring example of having a love and dedication for God, family, and country. Coach Lawless was a true molder of men by his teaching, coaching, and example. He loved life and all the clean and honest things it held. His joy and rewards came to him when others excelled. He loved to compete and he loved to win. Defeats, although seldom, were events which he quickly turned into learning experiences, but at the expense of no one's integrity. Never once did he denounce an opponent or achieve his goal underhandedly. It's my good fortune and blessing to know Coach Lawless as a student, player, and friend. It was an association that lasted 28 years. Many of his teachings were passed on by his lads, and hopefully they will continue to be part of every Fenwick man's philosophy. Truly a Hall of Fame, without Coach Lawless in it, would certainly be very hollow. I feel sorry for the young athletes of Peoria that never had the opportunity to play for Coach Lawless. But when he came to Chicago, he attached himself to Fenwick High School, the place he stayed for his entire life. He is well remembered, he is well respected, and I thank you all for the great honor you have bestowed upon him this evening. So I thank you very much for Coach Lawless, his family, and everyone affiliated with him. Thank you very much.
Good job.
To accept Coach Lawless's award, we'd like to have Dick and Bob Lawless come up. They probably had a fight already, so Bob must have left. Could you come up, Dick? So we welcome Tony into our Greater Peoria Sports Hall of Fame. And there is his nephew, Dick Lawless.
I think the last talker, I think he gave everything you need to hear about Tony Lawless. He was a great guy. He was a dedicated coach. Worked 47 years at Fenwick. Never took a vacation. Not once. He wouldn't get away from the school long enough to have a vacation because he always had something else to do. He told me one time, he said, they send these boys to me, 14, 15 years old, and all I'm supposed to do is point them in the right direction and see that when they get out of Fenwick, they're better men. He said, my job was to make men out of these 14-year-old boys. He said, I was successful all the time because I wouldn't let up on them. If they went against me, I just pushed them all the harder. He was a tough coach. Never got enough, never was satisfied. Ed told me I only got a few minutes here, so. When he blows the whistle, that's my signal to quit. When I see him get the whistle out of his pocket, I'll quit. But Tony always made everybody give 120%. If he got a guy and he thought he was giving 100%, Tony had to get more out of him. He was very hard to play for, but everybody that got out of Fenwick was proud of it. They were proud had attended Fenwick, and they were proud that Tony Lawless was their teacher. One of them told me one time, he said, you know, when I was in school, I hated him every day because he was so hard on me. And he says, when I got out of school, he said, I thought he was the greatest man in the world. And I said, well, I told another guy, I said, you were so easy. He was quarterback for Central. He said, yeah. He said, I was so easy. One time I was supposed to block somebody, and I didn't block it. He told me, go over there by that tree and block that tree till it starts moving. He was real hard on you. So I'm honored to be part of this program. I'd like to, Tony wasn't the only Lawless. I'd like to have all the Lawlesses right here stand up just for a second. I'm the nice one. Again, I want to thank you for inviting me here, and I want to thank the sports people here in Peoria for bringing Tony this award. I'm sure he's up there right now cheering for us. He never got enough of sports. I want to thank you again for inviting me. Good job.
Thank you, and Ken Geiger, what a great presentation you made. You need to learn to project a little more so we could all hear you. No, I'm just kidding. Great voice. You know who he reminds me of? Art Holtz. Doesn't he have a voice similar to Art? Well, all I answer are you falling asleep here. Let's keep you on end. Moving on. That's right. Okay. Our next presenter is a Hall of Famer, great basketball player, great coach. And you'll hear him occasionally. Don, if you're in the audience, you can start coming up because it's going to be a short. Don Matthews. Where is Don? Right there. Go over there. Right over here. You can start walking up here because as you get older, you're slowing down a little bit. And if you have been listening to WMBD in the high school games, he does color with Dan DiOrio. Does an outstanding job. I don't care what the folks at WMBD have been saying. Here's Don Matthews.
When I was asked to introduce John Venturi, I thought, well, I don't know John that well. I never coached with him. I never taught with him. So I went over and talked with him at Washington. And I was looking for a little common ground, and I found it. See, he played for his father, and I coached my son, so we had some things to talk about. And one of the things he recalled was the fact that Pekin was leading 13-7. He was quarterback. His father was on the sidelines, and he pitched out to a back who had already passed by the ball, and the ball, it was an errant throw. They were only leading 13-7. The defensive back picked it up for the other team, had great speed. The only one who had a chance to catch him was John, and he got him at the 15-yard line, and they held on. Pekin held on and won. And after the game, they asked Joe, his father, Joe Ventura, he said, hey, you going to talk to that quarterback about that errant throw? He said, I haven't had a chance, but we will talk about it. He said, well, what about the fact, were you kind of surprised that your son had that kind of speed and caught him? He said, well, John had a great advantage. That player was running for a touchdown. John was running for his life. And I got a kick out of it because I understand that that's a very big pressure. You're trying to please, as a player, you're trying to please your dad, your coach, who happens to be the same person. But what about those guys you play with? And he said, you know what, I didn't know if I was accepted by the players until one day Dad was yelling from the sidelines to us as I was about ready to call a play, and one of the linemen said, don't pay any attention to that idiot. After several years as an assistant coach, and we knew, the coaches around here knew that he was a good football mind. We had heard about John Helmick and John Venturi and all that. I like to label it Mr. Venturi went to Washington, and he was just had, as you'll see it in the bio, but in 147 wins and 60 losses in 20 seasons. State champs in 1985, runner-up in 1983, 10 Mid-Illini championships, 8 undefeated in conference play. His biggest thrill was going to Washington and turning that football program around. And he was 1-8 in 1978, league champs in 1981 in the Mid-State 10. So Mr. Venturi went to Washington, and after successful years over there, he found his way to the Greater Peoria Sports Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, John Venturi.
Thank you, Don. I'd like to thank the Board of Directors and the Selection Committee of the Greater Peoria Area Sports Hall of Fame for this great honor. This organization, along with the print and electronic media in the Peoria area, have always recognized achievement in high school athletics and kept prep sports as front page news, television lead stories, and featured radio broadcasts. We have never been treated as anything but equals to collegiate and professional sports reporting, and that is somewhat unusual in today's expanded sports coverage. But that is the way it has always been in Central Illinois, and those of us involved in high school sports are extremely grateful. Special thanks to the Peoria Journal-Star today that identified me as Rick Venturi, and I'd like to thank Ken Theobald for that. Anytime you receive this type of award, many people are responsible and should share in the recognition. I know this to be true in my case. I am a product of my environment with a lot of great experiences and extremely good luck. As a prep athlete at Pekin High School, I had the good fortune to play for 3 Illinois High School Hall of Fame coaches: Harry Anderson in baseball, Dawson Hawkins in basketball, and my father, Joe Venturi, in football. In college at the University of Missouri, I played for an NCAA Football Hall of Famer and National Championship coach Dan Devine, and a former Big 8 and National Coach of the Year in Al Onofrio. I'll never forget Coach Onofrio's encouragement before my first start against Stanford, the defending Rose Bowl champs, in 1971. And he told me, if you're good enough to earn it, be smart enough to keep it. Well, that was the last game I started, so that tells you about my ability and my intelligence. As a graduate assistant coach at Mizzou for Coach Onofrio, and later as an assistant at Peoria High, where I served for 4 of the most successful coaches that school has ever produced, and I'm happy to see all 4 of them here today: Bruce Boyle, Joe Suffield, Phil Salzer, and Larry Lavery. All these people taught me how to play the game, but more importantly, how to coach it. They each had distinguishingly different styles, but similar successes. They were innovative tacticians, fierce competitors, and great motivators. They all coached with style and substance, with the emphasis on substance. They were all gracious losers, humble winners, and positive role models. Although I can't remember Coach Hawkins being a gracious loser. I certainly feel that their influence made invitation obvious and success almost inevitable. As Yogi Berra once said, you can observe a lot by watching. I'd like to thank the athletic directors, principals, and superintendents that I have worked for, and most school board members. They gave me the opportunity, the means, the support, and their blessings to do the things the way they needed to be done. In my coaching career, I've been extremely lucky to work for the late Jim Smart-Jesse and Jack Stromberger and Steve Doty as my athletic directors, Corky Robertson, Harry Whitaker, Ray Torrey, and Lee Edwards as principals and superintendents. My assistant coaches at Washington, many of whom are here today over table 11, they share this recognition. They shared the workload, provided undying loyalty, sacrificed personal recognition for the benefit of the kids in the program. Thanks to these guys that are here, Rocky Cooper, Phil Moss, Paul Cram, Tom Smith, Tom Williams, Todd King, and Todd Stevens. Thanks to some very dear friends, Dr. Phil Bear, Charlie Fuller, Pat Webb, Rich Burke, Ryan Wisher, Chuck Bruner, Clint Reed, Ken Fruce, Paul Necros, and Mike Blair, who contributed in various capacities to our success. Some of those guys are here today too, and thanks for being here. I was fortunate to have coached many outstanding athletes, over 100 all-conference players, 11 scholarship athletes, 8 all-staters, 1 high school All-American, who's here today, Mark Dennis, who is also a 10-year NFL veteran and played on a Rose Bowl team at the University of Illinois. Thanks for coming, Mark. I was blessed to have many great players who helped us win games, and many more good or average players who made me a better coach. This happened in no small part because of many supportive parents who validated our efforts at home with positive reinforcement. Many thanks as well to some of the most loyal fans anywhere who followed us all over the state of Illinois. The only thing they really wanted and expected was to win once a week. I'd also like to thank the many boosters that helped us financially, provided positive support, and developed one of the best fundraising organizations in high school sports anywhere in the country. The concepts of our organization, the 12th Man, have been copied many other places, but the thing I'm proudest of is our leaders kept it a support group and not a pressure group. And finally, I would not be standing here today without the love and support of my family. My mother and father, Norm and Joe Venturi, provided opportunities not many parents could or would give. My dad, who always offered constructive criticism, whether asked or not, and my mother, who never criticized, but wore out several rosary creeds. My brothers and sisters have always been there for me. Rick and Tom always coached with class and dignity. They both gave me a lot of needed advice and encouragement. And a very special thanks to my wife, Pamela, and my son, Nick, who gave me the freedom, inspiration, and time to pursue my dreams while sacrificing their own. I love you and I thank you.
Thanks, John. A lot of good humor there. I would like to hook you up with Royce Elliott. He's in need of some fresh material, and you certainly provided it. To introduce the 1983 Ridgewood State AA Championship girls basketball team, welcome once again their former head coach, Mary Kay Hungate. Mary Kay. And while she's walking up here, I failed to introduce the coordinator for the Hall of Fame Board of Directors, Mary Murphy. Give her a nice round of applause.
What a special team we had in 82, 83. The memories are still with me, and I know with them and also their parents, because it was definitely a family affair. I guess what I remember the most is the determination that they had, and the fact that at the beginning of the year they made up their mind that the state championship was what they wanted. And you know, it's a long season. For those of you that have coached, you know that when you are undefeated, there's a lot of pressure. And a lot of people even think you're better off to lose a game before you get to the playoffs. But that wasn't the case with this group. And you can look at what they've done with their lives, and you can tell they still are that way. Okay, I'd like to ask them to come forward. There were 3 of them that were able to be here today. Only one player still lives in the Peoria area, and the rest of them had to travel quite a distance. And then we also have a couple parents here representing their daughter. First is Carla Cox Bodis, who was a junior on the team that year. Second, Tracy Crick, who was a senior and team captain. Next is Shelley Johnson, who was also a senior. That's that family support I was talking about right there. Then at the last moment, Emily Walbord was not able to attend, but her parents, Dave and Barbara Walbord, are here, and I believe one of them may be planning on coming up to receive her medal. I appreciate them being able to be here today, and I know that they've got some stories. We met last night, and I got to hear some of them. Some of them I didn't remember quite the same way. But this group was special. I know they'll always have a special place in Mr. Baeto's heart, and I can remember him coming in the locker room at halftime at the state tournament and letting him know just that. So he was very special to this team. But thank you very much. I'll always remember this group. Now I'd like to bring up assistant coach Ralph Gallo. This is the guy I was talking about earlier that did just such an outstanding job for us over the years that he was the assistant. And I look back, at the time I didn't realize it, but I would guess that maybe I wasn't always really easy to work with. He never indicated that, at least not to my face. But what a great guy and what a great assistant coach. And I hope that he knows how much I appreciated everything that he did.
From 1983, we drop back to the year 1954 and the outstanding Peoria Central football team, which went undefeated that year. And to talk about that team and to introduce the members who are here present for the ceremony this afternoon is former player Brock Hetzing. Brock, where are you?
Thank you, and I'd like to have the team come up, if you would, at this time, and be with us. I think that must be about half the room. My name is Brock Hessing, co-captain of the 1954 Peoria Central High School football team. On behalf of Coach Juska and my teammates, we say thank you to the Greater Peoria Sports Hall of Fame Selection Committee for honoring the first undefeated team in the history of Peoria High School. We want to recognize our parents, the teachers, the fans, and this great community for supporting us during 1954 and filling the stadiums, Peoria Stadium, Pekin, and every place we played. We also want to recognize two of our teammates who are no longer with us, Frank Ragler and Bernie Mayer. Frank's wife, Marilyn, and son, Matthew, and Bernie's wife, Geraldine, are with us today to share this honor. Frank and Bernie will always be a part of our memories. Coach Tony Juska gave us a formula for success that served us well in 1954 and has guided us throughout all of our working careers. Coach's teachings can best be embodied in the word success. The first letter. Coach taught us to begin each day with a smile. That first smile set the tone for ourselves and for all those around us. The U stood for understanding. Understand our teammates. Understand our friends and our families and associates. Understanding results from being a good listener. And when Coach blew the whistle and said, "Listen up," we did. The first C stands for courage. He taught us courage to do things that we never thought we could achieve. To take calculated risk and accept the consequences. The second C is for caring. He taught us how to care for each other, to care for our families, and to care for our friends, and to care about doing the best that we could. The E was for excellence. He taught us to approach everything we did with excellence and combine that with enthusiasm, and both were contagious. The next to last letter stood for being a self-starter. We didn't wait for the coach's whistle, and later in our careers you didn't wait for the CEO, but rather you focused on doing the right thing as opposed to doing things right. And there's a difference. And the last letter was the same as the first. Coach taught us to end each day with a smile, knowing that we had done our best at the task at hand. That formula, beginning each day with a smile, understanding, caring about each other, having the courage to do new things, and to approach everything with excellence and enthusiasm, being a self-starter, and ending each day with a smile, has served us well in 1954. It has served us well through all of our working careers. Thank you, Coach Juska, for molding our lives in such a positive and constructive way. You will always be our coach. God bless you. We love you, Coach Juska. The other members here of our team, Joe Suffield, Dick Manarelli, Roger Thompson, all the way from Van Nuys, California.
San Diego.
San Diego.
It's a big difference.
Bruce Radley. Paul Armbright. Steve Drury. Steve, I think, had to catch a plane. Rod Grove. Wayne Lulay. Phil Diarcos. Don Jarkson. Gene Carr. Fred Kowalski. Bernie Mayer, accepting for Bernie his wife, Geraldine. George Boucher. Brock Hester. Jack Lulay. Rod Guthrie. Ralph Mason. Gene Toms. Gene Pike. Assistant Coach Bruce Sowers. Fred Fisher. Fred Stuber. Frank Ragler, accepting for Frank his son Matthew. Dale Young. And Gary Noble. Those other teammates who are not with us today, I'd like to read their names. Rich Herman, Mike Duke, Greg Gardner, Gordon Weiss, Roger Sokolis, John Bradford, Larry Wood, Bill Label, Dick McDermott, Bernard Wilson, Norm Marcus, Gerald Ashby, Leonard Flynn, Gary Noble, my other co-captain, Dick Jameson, who was with us last evening and could not be here today. Jim Swardensky, Bob Brown, Skip Snyder, assistant coach Dawson Dottie Hawkins, manager William Dave King, Tom Tingwall, Wallace Haley, and Norm Green. Again, thank you all. Thank you, the Greater Peoria Hall of Fame, for this wonderful honor.
Good job, Brock. Want to take, you want to sit down? Oh, yes. Doc wanted to mention that if you will show your ticket Monday, you can get a special discount on adjustments at the Higgins Chiropractic Clinic on Prospect. No, seriously. He wanted me to mention again that videotapes of this afternoon's program are available by filling out the form, and $20 to get you the videotape, shipping and handling covered. I want to make mention, Bruce Sowers was introduced as part of the team. This guy has done so much for Peoria sports. I think he is deserving of recognition. Bruce, you do a great job for Peoria sports. And I also want to thank Fred Kowalski, who was part of that central team. If you look on the back page, the inside of the back cover, you'll see a wonderful ad that was bought and paid for by Fred's marketing firm, Ross Incorporated. Our thanks to all of our advertisers, and certainly thanks to Fred for making that possible. Appreciate it, and don't forget to pay us because we haven't gotten the check yet. I know. I want to introduce Barb Bell. She's a member of the board. She's been sitting up here, and she did pay for her meal, and a Hall of Famer too, and a great coach at Woodruff High School. Barb Bell. And Lynette Schertz, who is a guest of Doc Higgins, had decided to leave. She'd had enough of him, and she's gone home. Oh, that's me, huh? All right. Once again, all the inductees stand up and be recognized for a final time, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it's 3:15, and once again this year we've broken the time record by about 45 minutes. But we appreciate your patience and your indulgence, and commend and recognize and congratulate all of the inductees and the award winning. Thank you very much for your support, for coming. God bless you. Drive careful.